Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Beverly H. Burks, and this is the City of Clarkston City Council Work Session meeting for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026 at 7 p.m. I'll start with roll call with Vice Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilwoman Bell.
Present.
Councilman Perkins.
Present.
Councilman Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman Bayonne.
Present.
And right now, we don't have Councilwoman Adee, but I will recognize she's up on Zoom. Oh, she's on Zoom. Okay, she's on Zoom. Councilwoman Adee? She can be. Okay, all right. And then we'll recognize our city manager, Shaquia Miller-Thornton.
Yes, ma'am.
With that, are there any updates or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted by common consent. We will now move into presentation, starting with the presentation of the fiscal year 2024 Comprehensive Annual Audit Report. City Manager Miller-Thornton.
Yes, ma'am. So we do have representation here, Mr. Josh Carroll from Malden and Jenkins, who serves as the city's auditor. And this is our fiscal year 2024 audit report.
Thanks for having me.
Hello? Oh, it definitely works. Is there a clicker, or did I just tell someone the next slide? Okay, perfect. All right, well, Mayor and Council, thanks for having me, and as the city manager said, I'm Josh Carroll, and I'm a partner with Malden and Jenkins, and we're contracted to do the city's external audit, and this is the December 31st, 2024 audit. Next slide, please. So this is my agenda. I'm going to go over our team, a little bit about the firm, and then I got results, and I got comments and questions at the end. There's a couple financial trends in the middle, but if you have questions as I'm going, you could feel free to stop me, and I'm happy to answer them. Next slide, please. This is kind of a snapshot of our firm. We've been around over 100 years now. We spend a lot of time investing in state and local government audits. I spend my entire year doing nothing but counties and cities and development authorities and state agencies. We audit the county, DeKalb. We audit a lot of your neighbors, so we bring a lot of knowledge and kind of not only government knowledge, but kind of local DeKalb County knowledge to your audit. I spend my whole year doing it. Everybody that worked on your audit also does nothing but governments all year long. I don't even do my own tax return, so I do government audits all year long. And I had Meredith. She's been a partner over 30 years. I had her do we call it a quality review. She kind of comes behind me and looks at a really high level and make sure I didn't miss anything big, and she just kind of does a high level review, have another set of eyes in there. And she has not done that previously, so it's kind of a fresh set of eyes. The next slide, please. So the statements are the responsibility of the city's management. Our objective as your external auditor is to express an opinion. We followed all the generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards, and we did issue an unmodified or a clean opinion, which is what you'd hope to get from your audit. So as far as we're concerned, the financial statements that have been prepared and will ultimately be filed with the state are materially correct. And where the statements are now, we're done. We've done our final reviews. We don't anticipate the numbers changing. We've done all the reviews. The city is currently drafting the management's discussion and analysis, and we're going to drop that into the front of the report, and it'll be ready to file. So we're essentially done. We're just finishing up the MD&A, and then the report will be issued. We also issue a report on compliance and control. We kind of come in, we look at all your accounting cycles. We look at how you receipt cash, how you disperse cash. We look at credit card transactions. We look at how you onboard an employee, how you terminate an employee. We just kind of walk through all your accounting cycles, and we look at segregation of duties to see that, who's receiving the cash is not also responsible for taking the cash to the bank and then posting to the general ledger and reconciling the bank account. The city has good segregation of duties, so you have a clean report there as well. Next slide, please. So if I was on council, I think I might want to know, do we have anything weird or unusual or aggressive in maybe our accounting policies or maybe some of the judgments and estimates that are used in financial statements? And you don't. They're disclosed in the notes. Your accounting policies are very similar to a government of Clarkston size, whether it be here in Georgia or out in Mississippi somewhere. And most of your neighbors have very similar accounting policies. And your only real estimates are your useful life of the capital assets, like how long do we think a police car is going to last, and we'd appreciate that over those lives. We look at those, we feel good about them, and your actuary uses kind of assumptions for your pension liability, but you're in the GMA plan. Every city in that has the same assumptions, and we look at them, they seem reasonable to us. There's really nothing usual or aggressive there. Next slide, please. This slide, also, we have a good relationship with the city. We worked with you for a while, and even with all the turnover, the various finance directors, the new city manager, everyone smiles and is happy. We kind of get what we need. Nothing really seems hidden or covered up, whether we're asking the finance department or the police department. Everybody's real open to the auditors being and, you know, kind of digging around and doing what we do. So we appreciate the city working with us. And I know the audit has been delayed, and it has been an undertaking for the city to get that done. So I really appreciate, you know, the city manager. She came in and she's gone through several people just to try and get a good person in place. And I think you've got a good one with Steven. I've worked with him elsewhere. He's very detail oriented, and I think Ms. Miller Thornton's real happy with him, and hopefully that relationship will help the future audits. So we really appreciate you continuing to work with us, you know, partnering with us to get the audit done, because it definitely takes both sides of the coin, the city and the auditors. Next slide, please. We are independent. We didn't come close the books and do the bank recs and then turn around and audit our own work. We just come in and do the audit. So the city management does all the accounting work. So we are independent. The next slide, please. This is kind of my one financial trend. This is kind of the health of the city. This is your general fund, which is the main operating fund of the city. And this is your fund balance, or another word for fund balance is equity, or some might consider it reserves. You know, most of this fund balance is made up of cash and taxes receivable, and the city's historically doesn't have many issues collecting taxes. So most of that 48% is very liquid. And the GFOA is the standard setting body for local government. They recommend 2 to 3 months at a minimum, which is 16 to 25%. So you're right at about average of 50 here the last few years. So it's pretty healthy fund balance, almost half a year of expenses sitting in fund balance. And the trend up there is also very normal. Most of that is COVID money related. This is almost every client I have has this same bell curve trend here, where we had COVID money come in and we were able to use that for either capital or operating purposes, and it kind of shored up our general fund. And then that money went away, and hopefully we never have another pandemic. And so now we're kind of leveled back off to a normal, normal fund balance. And so, but anyway, it's very healthy fund balance. Next slide, please. So the audit's delayed, and we kind of lumped everything that happened in the audit into just one timely financial reporting finding. This does make it into the audit report. And I know it's not really news to the council that it's delayed, but we just want to highlight that, we do want to get caught up and make sure we have a good people and a good procedures in place to get our audits done timely, so the council can make informed decisions with, up-to-date numbers. And we did post some journal entries. They totaled about 1.5 million, but they're not something I think council should be worried about. A lot of them were accrual basis entries. It's not like you had cash go missing or an invoice came in that didn't get paid. It might be that the invoice got paid in February and it was for services in December, and we might have had to accrue that back. So it's an accounting thing. But we did post those entries, and I kind of lumped them all into one finding to just say, this is it. And I will say, this is not isolated to Clarkston. I'm sure it's a concern that the delay, but I see this a lot with, specifically when a finance director who's been here for 15 years, and it's a small city, and the finance director wore a lot of hats in the finance department. It typically makes the audit very difficult when that employee leaves. I have one right now, and they're going on 4 years behind, and they can't get people in place, and they just can't get the information. So it's certainly not isolated to Clarkston, and I feel like we'll get you caught up with Stephen and Ms. Miller-Thornton in place, and that's the goal and the objective for everybody in the audit team. And then we have one management comment here. It's the debt payments here. A couple of them didn't get paid timely, and it's just they got paid after their due date, and we just want to make sure we pay our debt timely so the bank doesn't get mad at us or they don't want to charge us, a little bit extra interest. I don't think that happened in this situation, but we just want to, make sure we pay our debt payments when they come due. But, out of all the delays and everything we went through, the audit was pretty clean once we got the information. Like I said, the $1.5 million adjustments they were really just accrual basis accounting type entries. That's it on the findings and the management comments. The next slide, please. Yeah. So we are a full service CPA firm, and I know several of the faces have seen this slide before, and we even came to one of your council retreats one time to meet with the partner that heads up the advisory group here, and they do a lot of niche projects for local government. They deal with budgets and strategies and operations and policies and procedures, and basically how are we operating? Why are we doing what we're doing? And why does employee A do the procedures they do? Is it because that's the way it's been done for 100 years and maybe that's the way it should be done? Maybe they could be doing something different. Maybe one department doesn't have enough employees based on the volume of transactions that are flowing through, or maybe one department has too many employees. And so they kind of come in and look at how are we operating and what are we doing well? How does that align with our own policies and our long-term plan, and what could we do better, and to provide a roadmap of how do we get there. And so they do that. It's something we offer. I know the council was very interested when we came to that retreat, that the timing wasn't right at the time, but if there's anything that comes up or you think we could help, we'd love to meet with you and discuss options and see how we could further assist the city outside of just being your auditor. Next slide, please. This slide, I just try to remind all of my clients the IT and cybersecurity world is ever changing. I see this almost every month. Some city, whether it's a humongous city or the smallest city that you've ever seen, they get hacked for ransomware, so no one is too big or too small to be hacked. And so just kind of remind our IT group to make sure we're staying on top of it and training our employees. Most of them are through someone clicking on a link, so it's just kind of a reminder. And then I'll just skip to the end. The next couple slides are GASB. GASB sets the standard. They're always busy. We will implement those as they come along. And the very last slide, we do continue to provide free CPE to all of our clients. They're heavy in governmental accounting, and they're designed to train clients on what's coming up and what's changing, and just inform them if you have an accountant that needs CPE, it's free. They're virtual, they're quarterly, you don't have to travel anywhere, and anybody at the city is welcome to attend. I can get you signed up, and that's really all I have. And like I said, in the end, it was a clean audit. You have a clean opinion, pretty good fund balance, and we appreciate the city working with us to get it done, and I'm looking forward to the next one, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your team's hard work. I'll open it up, and I'll start with our city manager. If you have any questions, and again, thank you and the team for all the hard work that you did with getting this audit together.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say that in regards to the timely audit submission finding, the management does concur with the finding, and we will be putting our response to that is that we'll be putting a schedule in place for year-end closing so that we can make sure that we submit in a timely fashion. We are also continuing to work outside of the audit process. We are continuing to work on our front to back office processes, making sure that we continue in those separation of duties, and also making sure that we are, making timely deposits and doing all those things that we are supposed to do when it comes to good financial management of our city's resources.
Thank you. From a need as far as the staff to be able to continue what you're doing with the audit, is there anything that you would need in terms of additional software or anything else that we need to be mindful as we're looking towards the budget?
Yes, ma'am. You all did give us monies in the current year's appropriations for new financial software. As we look to bring in a finance director who can be on the ground day to day. Right, we do appreciate Stephen and his team, but with the capacity that they have, they're not able to be here on the ground to kind of manage and guide staff. And so as we bring a new finance director in, we will ask that we'll be able to make some budget appropriations or adjustments. It may not be an increase of the budget, but we may need to adjust some line items to keep Sumter and Stephen and his team on board while we complete the 2025 audit and work on catching up reconciliations for 26. We are currently looking at financial management software providers. And so we want to get done with the 2025 audit so that we can roll into a clean set of books as we do any data migration to a new software platform. So we're just kind of scheduling that out.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have questions at this time? Yes, Vice Mayor.
My question is for either of you. It's on. With the 2 late payments on our URA bonds, how will that impact us going forward? Or will it?
I think we'll be in good shape. I know that one of the payments we caught when early on in my term, and I sat down I actually called the bank and talked to them about, some of the turnover that we had and how that played a part. They also had emailed the invoice to an email of a person who was no longer with the city, and so they did reverse the interest payment for one of those loan payments. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for the presentation and the continuous hard work that your team has been doing with the city.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. All right. With that,
Go back up.
have to go old school. All right. 3B, there's a presentation of the Clarkston Housing Assessment Initiative, and I'll turn that back over to City Manager.
We have Kristin Allin here from the Atlanta Regional Commission. She seems to be a part of the Clarkston team at this point. So we are excited to be working with her. Our Economic Development Mobility Manager, Mr. Jeter, McKinley Jeter, is heading this project on the city's behalf, but we'll be working closely with Kristin and the ARC team to get this assessment done.
Thank you so much, City Manager. Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. It's really nice to be here tonight. ARC is so excited to have awarded the City of Clarkston a CDAP project, our Community Development Assistance Project. So this project comes kind of on the heels of the last project, which was the Housing Summit. And so now we are moving into kind of what happens after the Housing Summit. So the application was for the housing assessment, and I'll talk a little bit more about the conversations with staff and what the recommendation is for ARC. Next slide. So ARC's vision is one great region, and housing falls under healthy, safe, and livable communities. Next slide, please. And for those who are not familiar with the Atlanta Regional Commission, we are a quasi-government agency, and we help with planning and implementation across the 11 counties in Metro Atlanta. Next slide, please. The program that this project was awarded under is ARC's Community Development Assistance Program. And this can be staff assisted or grant funded, but we have priority issues around access to healthy food, placemaking, housing affordability, and other things. And this is actually a staff assistance project. So our staff at ARC will be leading this. Next slide. And we're excited about expanding housing plans within the region. So the ARC-led plans that are happening currently or have just wrapped up are Henry County, Clayton County, and Rockdale County. And we're very excited. The city of Clarkston is on this list as well. Next slide. So I wanted to go over the Clarkston Housing Strategy Overview. Next slide. And also, this is a 2026 to 2027 project. We'll go through the timeline in a moment. But I wanted to point out, because we are on the heels of the 2025 Clarkston Housing Summit and also 2 neighborhood mini summits, that there's already a strong foundation for this project. So what we're intending to do with this CDAP is to turn those conversations into action, so to take the next step, not a restart. So there are conversations, and I'll go through a little more detail in this, around using the assessment to form a housing task force, so a combination of data and community, so that we have community voices along with the technical expertise and data-driven analysis. Next slide. So we are in the very end of month 2 right now, project initiation. And so you can see the timeline. The next item is the task force applications and finalization, and the project will go through the end of May 2027. So it's a 12-month project. Next slide. So the summit that we had in 2025 engaged residents through the citywide summit and mini summits, and those conversations gave us a great foundation for identifying key housing challenges, highlighting community priorities, and establishing a vision for improving opportunity. Next slide. This is a high-level summary of the feedback from the Housing Summit. So some of the items that came up were around housing quality and condition, affordability and resident stability, community and connectivity, and policies and programs. Next slide. We also had recommendations around different potential partners and plans that could be implemented. So we had a lot of really great conversation and engagement during that Housing Summit. Next slide. So now we'll talk a little bit about the application for the current project, the 2026 CDAP project. Next slide. So what we heard from the staff and for Mr. McKinley and city manager and from the application was that there was a very big desire for a co-design, a community co-design project for the CDAP. So although the housing data is very, very important, they wanted to make sure that community members were at the table to help design this. So we really, this really evolved over our conversations in the last 2 months into a project that has residents as co-designers, the data as the foundation, and we know that when the residents help shape the housing strategies and we build that trust, it's more durable for implementation. Next slide. So why a housing task force as part of this assessment? So the housing task force would build on the prior work of the Housing Summit. The next step would be moving community conversations to actionable solutions, and the collaborative framework will connect data with lived experience, develop actionable recommendations. So we'd really like to have the task force agree on a set of recommendations that could be a guide for the council over the coming years, and make sure that we involve community members and partner organizations. Next slide. So the way we envision this housing task force is 18 to 24 members, balancing lived experiences and professional expertise. There is an application process that will open very soon, and the applications will be reviewed by ARC and city staff, and there will be final appointments made by the Clarkston Mayor and Council. I want to point out here that it's an option if the council would like to make appointments to the task force as well, if each council member would like to make an appointment. We feel like this will really help with broad representation across different backgrounds. Next slide. So these are some ideas we've had around composition. So definitely the community and lived experience, different community members, different ages, different home situations, homeowners and renters, and then also technical and institutional. So there are a lot of really great organizations working in DeKalb and in Clarkston. So we highlighted the DeKalb Housing Authority and the DeKalb Land Bank, also local nonprofit organizations that work in Clarkston, CDFIs, a representative from the school system, and the Development Authority. But there could be others. These are just some of the suggestions that came up. Next slide. And we envision the task force meeting 4 to 5 times, and ARC will facilitate these meetings with 1 to 2 community checkpoints so that the community is aware of the progress that we're making and we can share that more broadly. Next slide. So I'll go through ARC and Clarkston responsibilities. So ARC serves as the project manager, so we will be facilitating the meetings and coordinating activities. We'll prepare a technical analysis similar to what we provided for the Housing Summit or what would be provided in an assessment to make sure the task force members and community members are aware of the data. We'll lead public engagement, and we'll develop the deliverables and guide the task force through the planning process. Next slide. Clarkston's responsibilities include the CDAP fee schedule. So there's a local contribution. It's called the Small Community Contribution for populations of 15,000 or less for $7,500. And then Clarkston is the primary project partner. So Clarkston would provide the logistical and administrative support as far as meeting venues, food and beverage, stakeholder scheduling, and then also lead task force recruitment, outreach support, including translation services and engagement. Next slide. We envision this task force implementation over 4 to 5 facilitated sessions and 5 tasks. So you can see how the tasks are broken up over the months, starting in month 1 and going to month 12. And I'll go through quickly each task. Next slide, please. So task 1 is initiation. So we're in this right now. As I said, we're in month 2, the end of month 2. So we've organized the project management team. We are starting to launch the multilingual recruitment for the Housing Task Force and the applications, and we are starting to prepare the data of the Housing Summit findings and updating that data. Next slide. Task 2 will be months 3 through 8. So we will finalize the task force in month 3 and convene the first meeting in month 4. We will continue to collect data and provide that comprehensive assessment of housing conditions. We will begin the task force meetings and co-develop recommendations. And the deliverable will be a roster of the task force, engagement findings, data, and research. Next slide. Task 3 will be developing the plan and preliminary recommendations. This is months 7 through 9. So ARC will draft the recommendations organized around the community's housing priorities developed by the task force. All of the drafts will be reviewed by the project management team and the housing task force. And so the deliverable will be a draft of the housing assessment with the charts, maps, graphics, which will be internally reviewed. Next slide, please. Task 4 will be community feedback and final recommendations. So months 7 through 10, we will draft those recommendations, and deliverable will be the community feedback summary documenting the public input on the draft recommendations. And next slide. Lastly, task 5 will prepare the final deliverable, months 10 to 12. So this will be the final Housing Task Force report and supporting materials. So we'll have the full housing assessment with the data and engagement findings, the housing action framework. So we will try to prioritize there the recommendations of the task force with an implementation matrix, the executive summary, whatever is determined to be the multilingual summaries that are needed, and a year 1 implementation action plan. Next slide, please. As a reminder, this is where we are in our timeline, and I just wanted to point out that August 21st is when the applications will be due for the task force, as well as the council appointments. The 28th, we will have the final task force selection and the notification, and on September 1st, we'll be back in front of the council to present the task force members, and we will begin scheduling those meetings. Next slide, please. And that's everything. So we're very excited about this project and welcome any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for the continued partnership with ARC. We continue to do a lot, not only with the Housing Summit, but with Greenway projects and everything else. So it makes a difference when you think about one great region. And so we're happy to be a part of that work with you. Council, did you have any comments, or did you have a preference of having an appointment for it, or you want to allow the staff and ARC to select individuals? Councilman Perkins.
I would prefer, I think, to let staff handle it.
Okay.
I think we can review and have a discussion if we need to. I think with council, but I think my on the request that we make sure we have a representative, whoever is on that team, which I think y'all have done a really good job of in the past, just make sure that they are representative of the whole of the community. And so with an eye to demographics.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell?
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation, Kristin. Got a few questions, so I'll answer your question first, Mayor.
Okay.
I'm indifferent. They can move forward however the city manager and the staff see fit for the housing, the task force. My question is around the methodology for the summit, because I see the findings in the 4 quadrants that we have, but I don't know where that came from, and I saw the numbers in the previous report. But I just want to make sure that as we're thinking about housing and some of the sustainability mechanisms and beautification aspects that were mentioned in the findings, can you tell me the age group, the saturation of the output?
The age group of the people who attended the summit
And responded.
and responded. We had a fairly wide range. I think for this process, we could probably try to be more intentional about involving youth. So I'd like to do that. So most of the attendees were probably between 25 and, I'd say, 65 or so. So it'd be nice to get a little more of a snapshot in this process of younger people. But we did have about 100 people at the summit, and then probably about 25 to 30 people at each of the mini summits. So we did feel like we collected good feedback. The summit was pretty in-depth. It was about a 2.5 hour, which included a presentation of data, and so we would present our findings of what we were seeing data-wise in Clarkston, and then pause and have people in the audience reflect on that. And then at the end, we had a roster of questions about what they wanted to see and what they thought the biggest challenges were in Clarkston. So we're really able to kind of, from those conversations, have emerged what different issues the community really wanted the council to work on. And so those were listed in the slide deck around stability, some of the rental properties, things like that. So it really kind of gave some guidelines around where we should focus. And I think this is the opportunity to take that feedback and really dive deeper into how we put the data back out in front of everyone again, make sure we have more engagement. But the most difficult part, I think, of any housing assessment or strategy is actually turning what the community wants into policy. So we think this is a really good way to do that with the task force.
Okay.
So my sub question is, so the reason I asked that question because our city is trending younger. And when it comes to these events, especially if they're 2 hours long, I'm just thinking about the strategy of the model for how we receive that information, how we galvanize them to get the input. And then the other component of it is in that first step of the process, as you go over the next 12 months, they get through key terms and terminology. Use a lot of words like beautification, stability, and sustainability. But what that looks like for one individual in our community completely differs. And I don't want that to slow down the process for us to move forward over the next 12 months. And so having those key terms based off of the findings that you did receive, hopefully a lot of it was qualitative, some of it might have been quantitative. But that needs to be clear, I think, as we think about this task force. If not, it is going to be a task to kind of get them all thinking on the same accord. Then my second question is around the focus on CIDs as it relates to housing, because I'm thinking about our economic challenges that we have as a city, all of the things that most cities are facing, and how do we leverage that dollar for beautification, for transportation access, all the things that are going to be amenities based off of the findings that individuals want.
Yes. Funding is definitely one of the biggest challenges. And so I think if there are CDFIs working within the city of Clarkston or financial organizations, it would be great to either have an interview with them or have someone represented on the task force, but to understand, like, have people have expertise in those areas as part of the task force. So if, outreach from everyone, staff and council would be great to kind of make sure we have.
I give you this one.
This is the last one. The reason I asked that question is because as I'm thinking about other task force and other communities that we have, we do need people with diversified experiences and knowledge to be on there to think through some of the containers that we actually need in order to be able to finance the things that are around the housing option. And so that's why I'm indifferent on it. But I do think that we've all dealt with this. That is going to be a challenge too. And maybe there need to be parameters that are in the county, not necessarily just in the city as we think about the housing task force.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if part of your composition, if you consider not necessarily someone who may be physically a resident in the city, but can be an advisory to that, I think that would be beneficial for those types of policy direction and where we can make those assessments. I think that would help out in the group. Anyone else? All right, have at it.
Thank you so much.
Continue doing the great work. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
And so at this time, I'll go to item 4, which is public comments. Any member of the public may address questions or comments to the city council referencing only agenda items after the mayor and council have had the opportunity to discuss the agenda item. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments. We will now turn to 5A, which is old business. A discussion of resolution number 2026-017 to ratify the contract for Skyline Engineering and construction for civil engineering services for Milam Park football field multi-purpose conversion proposal. And I'll turn this back over to the city manager.
Yes, ma'am. So we do have Mr. Duncan here, Parks and Rec Director, and we also have representatives from. Oh, this is a Skyline contract. I'm sorry.
All we're doing is just to.
I got you.
Yep. Ratify.
So we did, yes, ma'am. Council did duly approve the contract for Skyline, but we didn't at the time include a resolution that references the contract. So we're bringing that resolution forward tonight.
Okay. So we wanted to make sure, and Councilman Perkins, when you were going through that, that was a reason, because we didn't have the resolution at the time.
Exactly.
So we want to make sure anytime we have contracts that we have the accompanying resolution. So for historical purposes, we'll be able to find it and be able to see where that document was. So council, with that, is this something we can, do you have any questions first? Okay. Is this something from a consent we can have on consent? And I will, for the public, have you a chance to say something about it. But we've already approved it. We just want to make sure in terms of having documentation that goes along with the contracts we have it. So is it okay for consent? Consent. All right, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yes, and just to make sure we're clear, this is coming out of the SPLOST funding, not out of the general fund. Okay, just make sure. Thank you. No problem. So we'll move on to new business, which is 6A, a proclamation of the city of Clarkston honoring Rupert Fike as 2026 Author of the Year. I'm going to turn this over to Vice Mayor. So, because I did the resolution, but we'll officially do everything next week. Okay. So I can speak.
Time, I will defer this item to the mayor.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure we follow process. So we are so excited to have one of our own, Rupert Fike, to be recognized as one of Georgia's 2026 Authors of the Year. And that's something amazing. And so he has been a staple in this community. And so what we'll do next week, making sure that he's here to recognize him for this accomplishment, not only for his poetry and literary work, but also the work that he has continuously done in the community. So we want to make sure you come out for Rupert Fike Day. And that will be next week. And I'll turn that back over to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And at this time, does anyone on council have any questions about this item?
And I don't want it to be a
Okay,
consent.
so we're gonna turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, and this,
Question.
and this will not be a consent item since we will have him there for the meeting. Yes.
I don't have any questions about it. I'm really happy about this. But I've got a lot of background with Rupert and his things that he's done in the past to get to this point. And I hope I can speak to that next week.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
It's a long story.
Oh, and I just want to ask, can he give us a poem next
Yes,
week?
I was going to ask you
Okay.
for a poem.
Okay.
Okay,
That would
out of
be
the
great.
book. Okay, all right. With that, we will, in any public, okay. All right. With that, we'll move on to 6B, which is the presentation and discussion of final draft form of the City of Clarkston Park and Recreation Master Plan for council consideration of adoption. Perez Planning and Design is the presentation, but I'll turn it back to the city manager.
Yes, ma'am. We have Perez and Design presenting the final draft of our Parks and Rec Master Plan tonight. I know that Director Duncan is glad to have this process coming to a close, and we hope that the mayor and council will be pleased, and the public, of course, will be pleased with the documents and the recommendations moving forward.
Thanks, City Manager. It's good to see everyone again. I'm Nick Stevens, a planner with Perez Planning and Design, joined by Carlos Perez, the principal of our firm. So yes, tonight we'll be just discussing the implementation section of this plan as we move towards completion. Next slide, please. Today we're just going to be going overview of our project purpose, just reminding you of our project approach and schedule. Then we'll cover that implementation strategy, and then discuss any questions you may have before wrapping up. So just as a reminder, the purpose of this Parks and Recreation Master Plan is to create a guiding document for the future development and redevelopment of the community's park system over the next 10 years and beyond. It's a roadmap for ensuring equitable access and connections to parks now and into the future. It's a system-wide approach to developing goals, policies, and guidelines to guide the department. And lastly, what we're discussing today is really the strategies that have been prioritized based on current and future funding scenarios. Next slide, please. Our approach is this 5-step strategic planning process where each phase builds on the prior. We're now in the implementation plan, phase 4, which of course discusses those funding alternatives and the project prioritization. And then pending any further adjustments, we'll move towards that final plan, which we'll bring before you for adoption. Next slide, please. Just to remind you of our schedule, we kicked this off last April. And so now we are really wrapping it up. We're towards the very end and hoping to have that final plan for adoption next month. So to get into the implementation strategy, and I'll just make the point that this is a very high-level overview, and there's a lot more detail and context in that master plan report. Next slide, please. So this is really about taking this vision, these 5 goals that we discussed the last time, and this map, which really combines everything that we developed for the vision, and moving it into implementation through a range of strategies and priorities based on the funding that we know that you'll have. Next slide, please. So there are really 4 components to this implementation strategy. The first is those funding options, and that's your projected capacity to pay for these capital projects and your staffing needs. The phasing strategy, which is prioritization of those capital improvement projects and how they could be implemented over the next 10 years. That list of prioritized capital projects based on that phasing strategy and those accompanying costs. And then lastly, actions and steps. And we're just going to touch on those today because there's quite a few of them and they're all included in the report in detail. Next slide, please. So to begin with the funding options, we broke this down a number of ways, but to begin, we know your total city budget funding for Parks and Recreation is really split between operations and maintenance and capital projects. And based on your last 5 years, and the money that was earmarked through the most recent splash, you'll have about just under $8 million over the next 10 years coming directly from your city budget. When we think about how that breaks down for capital improvement project funding, that includes those general fund dollars and the SPLOST, which were in the previous chart. And then we've added additionally grants, both general grants and CDBG grants. And those are what we would like to say is conservatively estimated at $1 million and $500,000 over the next 10 years. Director Duncan has already demonstrated a great ability to get grants, and we know that the city has a really strong potential to continue receiving grants, and your total could be many times higher, particularly with the support of a dedicated grant writer, which we recommend. But that total for the CIP comes up to around $6.7 million over the next 10 years. We also know that there's the potential for another SPLOST that the county could pursue in the next few years, so that would provide additional money starting towards the end of, I guess, 2033. And so that would, could provide additional money in those last 3 to 4 years of the next 10 years and then beyond. Next slide, please. Just another point on the grants. We did provide a list of numerous grants that have been successfly received by your peer communities, and some of these I think Clarkston has actually received over the last 20 years, totaling over $25 million. So, over the next 10 years and beyond, we really do believe the city has a great potential to supplement the funding that we've listed with additional grants. And one just a recent example of a newer source of grant funding, which is really coming from some private organizations that are kind of newer to the scene, including the Bezos Earth Fund, which has been giving a lot of parks money across the country, including over $9 million to a single park in Atlanta recently. So, just reiterating that point that we really believe that grants are a huge opportunity for the city of Clarkston to supplement the funding that we know you have. Next slide, please. One other piece of your funding strategy is a parks bond, which would be a general obligation bond directly focused on parks projects. And we included this information because directly based on the statistically valid survey that we did and other public engagement, we know that a majority of your population expressed interest and willingness to pay additional money in property taxes to support the parks and recreation projects that are important to them. In the statistically valid survey specifically, 63% of respondents were willing to pay an additional $60 to $72 annually. So we did create a rough calculation of what that could mean in terms of 20-year and 30-year revenue collection based on the average owner-occupied property paying an additional $72 per year, which would be $1.8 million over 20 years and $2.7 million over 30 years. And that would equate to a rise of 0.238 mils. Next slide, please. So the next component of the implementation strategy is this phasing of the capital projects. And we know there's two main categories of parks projects that we are presenting, and those are improvements to your existing facilities and then completely new parks facilities. So we developed a prioritization strategy, which has a number of criteria, and we use those to score both these categories of parks projects. Next slide, please. This just gives you a brief overview of those prioritization criteria, as I was saying, related to both those two categories of projects, improvements to existing facilities and those new parks facilities. So as you can see, we take each of the goals and we create criteria that are related to them. And then based on those criteria, we're able to score all of the parks projects. Next slide, please. So this is the preliminary draft list of your capital projects. As you can see, we've also added brackets to indicate what would be fundable based on your known existing city funding and those grant estimates, as well as the projects fundable by the 20-year and 30-year bonds. Just a few important caveats to make, I think, is that, while we believe the prioritization criteria are a strong beginning point, we're open to continuing the conversation about how these projects can be weighted to best reflect what you believe are your priorities. And we know that there's also a number of contingencies related to projects that may be created in partnership with other ongoing city initiatives like the Greenway. So there's a number of aspects to the project delivery that are contingent on other things happening in the city. One more slide of capital projects. And so the grand total is around $25 million. And so we believe, over the next 10 years and beyond, the city can chip away at this through both grants and hopefully additional SPLOST money and potentially that parks bond. Next slide, please. The last piece is the staff actions and steps. As I mentioned, there are 39 actions with key performance indicators and an additional 104 steps that are all documented in the report. And those all built on those goals that were developed through the vision. So we look forward to getting any additional feedback as you review that final master plan report. And that really concludes this overview. I know, as always, we kept it very high level and moved pretty quickly, but happy to take any questions. And again, look forward to any additional feedback you can provide based on your review of the full document.
Okay. And again, thank you for your team for all the work that you've done, and Director Duncan for not only his work, but the team coming together for that and doing additional workshops for some of the neighborhoods. So we appreciate that as well. Council, did you have any questions? And I just want to make sure, because I noticed there was a mention of a splash pad. Well, the one I was more concerned about was the one I saw for Friendship Forest, where that's more of a passive area. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, hey, put it out there. I got it. But I just want to make sure for the intent of how that park was structured, that it was to be a preservation passive area to be connected with the Greenway. So I just want to make sure to put that part out there. So, okay. They love that splash pad, I know.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate, we had some conversations with Director Duncan about concerns related to placing what could be considered active amenities in Friendship Forest. And we did create a little concept plan for that splash pad, and it would be directly adjacent to the restroom facility, so really minimizing any impact on the wildlife areas.
Okay, perfect. All right, Council, did you have questions? Councilman Perkins.
Yeah, thank you for just the work on this and the presentation. One concern I have with, I think I brought this up in our last meeting, was we're replacing all of our field space in Milam Park right now. And I know there's been an ongoing debate with staff as to the negative impact on hosting city events in our city center, since we don't own any of the land in the city center. Were there any discussions on having that be more multi-use, kind of having that multi-use field capability? I think I mentioned that maybe in our interview, but I'm one person. I guess where did the baseball field come into play?
So your concern is that if we replace the baseball field, you won't be able to use it during that time?
If we have the baseball field there, that is, I would say, our only space in the city where we can have different kinds of events that the city owns. Other alternative is basically locking down Main Street. So putting a baseball field there, that locks that into one purpose.
Yeah. So absolutely, everything that we're proposing for Milam is with the intention of making it multi-purpose, so that you can, host multiple events and really use it in whatever way you see fit. It's nothing that we're proposing for Milam Park is about creating, single use or specifically dedicated athletic facilities. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the conversion of the current soccer and football field to synthetic turf has been a high priority, is because that will just give you, a greater ability to program that space and use it for a variety of functions.
It would still have to be sports, though. I think what I'm getting at is so we just hosted multiple events there where we had a backpack giveaway for school. We have the capability to bring food trucks out there. You can't bring food trucks onto synthetic turf or a baseball field. So I think I'm kind of looking at I'm just trying to understand kind of where the baseball field idea came from, or locking down that space from being more of a multi-purpose field beyond just athletic events, right?
Okay. Yeah. So the baseball field is not the fence is specifically movable. So the baseball field is currently there. The infield has kind of, degraded away over the years, but there is a backstop, and that was traditionally a baseball field. So it's not really proposing a dramatic change to the way in which that field could be used for multi-purpose events. Just in terms of turf improvements to that outfield would still allow for food trucks or any other kind of use. And the fence that you may have seen in the concept plan is intentionally designed to be a removable fence. So it's not, but really, the goal is to ensure that Milam Park can be as multifunctional as possible.
So, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, he just said exactly what I was about to say. So the area where we had our backpack giveaway this past Saturday wouldn't change. That field would still be open, and if we use it for baseball, we would bring in the temporary fencing just for us to play baseball, but then that would be removed when that field would still be open. And then the purpose of having at that field is grass, but if we did do turf, it wouldn't be the same type of turf you use on the top field. So we'll be able to use that field for any activity we need, just like how we did on Saturday. So nothing would change with that.
So I think, Councilman Perkins, to your point, when you look at that area that has evolved now into the grassy knoll, right? It is an area that not only do we use for our large-scale events, but also people use that for cricket. And so to create the actual baseball field would require the changing of the surface to be able to accommodate that. And it would change how people would be able to do, or even be able to do cricket, because they wouldn't be able to do cricket there. And then the other piece to it is, was there a thought of having something where it's almost like that multi-purpose to be something from an amphitheater, or to think about where would we put additional parking to accommodate if we're doing and continuing to do those types of events, whereas looking on the side where we add additional or consider purchasing additional land to make it where we'll have that additional parking to be able to do some of the things that we need to do.
We could pull up the Milam concept plan if you want, but I think I can just add that in the concept plan for Milam Park, we did add additional parking, both within the parking lot and on-street parking. And I think, just again to reiterate, what we're talking about with the baseball field is the potential to do a synthetic infield, which is strictly the area where normally the base paths are. But by having that as synthetic turf, that's just that area where the pitching mound and the baselines are. And so that wouldn't impact the ability for people to play cricket or other sports on the larger field. And as Director Duncan said, to continue to use that space adjacent to the large pavilion for a variety of events, festivals, or other purposes. And ultimately, like I said, the addition of new paths throughout the park and the other multi-purpose facilities like the court and a reoriented playground are all with the intent of creating a more multifunctional and really successful space that has greater access for everyone, regardless of their abilities.
Go ahead.
So I'll say this. I'm looking at the design. I think if we leave that space as is, you could still do some, informal baseball games. I'm defer to my colleagues. I'm certainly not in favor of building anything. It's an empty field with the remnants of a backstop. Sure, I would hardly say that's a baseball field. I'm also going to say the idea of replacing this much grass with synthetic turf. I don't know if either of you guys have seen The Lorax. It's a great movie, at risk of being a little goofy bringing that up, but I don't like the idea where we're continuing to move these spaces that may take a little bit of maintenance, may take some grading towards synthetic artificial turf that will probably get damaged. We're pretty hard on a lot of our athletic fields and a lot of our playgrounds, things like that. my kids are hard on things, they're just kids, right? And so I think replacing something that can be replanted with something that's synthetic, that absorbs additional heat with everything else, I don't think that's a good plan moving forward. I'm one of 7 people up here, obviously, but I would encourage us to think a little more creatively than locking the space down with synthetic turf and a permanent baseball diamond, in a way where that's only one use. You got great parking, that could be a mixed use field. You could do baseball games there in the spring or the summer, whenever you want, still keep it mixed use. And then, you keep that a green field, get proper grading, some lighting in there. You're going to be able to do a lot more than putting artificial turf in and then field and putting some lines down. So, yeah,
Thank
I
you.
said,
Just
go ahead.
with you, how you see that area where the baseball field is will not change. So I don't know if you're thinking that we would change that, it would stay the same.
I'm just going off of the design.
Yeah.
The map that I have here has a full baseball field with dugouts. And
Yeah, it already has the dugouts there. So dugouts are already there. Nothing will change with the layout of the field. It'll be the same because the idea was having multiple events and programs there, but still be able to play baseball if we play baseball with a temporary fence that will come down and the space will still be open just the way you see it now.
yeah,
So it wouldn't change.
yeah.
Okay,
I won't-
thank
yeah.
you. Councilman Moore.
I just want to say this is a conceptual plan for guidelines for the future. We had people, a couple of people pushing for baseball fields there for years. It was in disuse, and at some point we got some grants. We were able to make it into what it was more recently as a good field, put the dugouts in, a little bit of activity, and then it's fallen apart again. So, putting something permanent in like the AstroTurf, whatever you want to call it, that's a decision we'll make down the road somewhere. We don't need to pick this thing apart. I think it's a pretty good plan. I like that they have been responsive to our feedback in the past to come to this point, and I want to thank you for doing that. It looks like a pretty impressive plan.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell?
Thank you. Can somebody put the slides back up there for me? James, keep going. So I have a question. My question is centered around the bond scenario. We have 1 and we have 2 over a 10-year period. I know most of that is interest, but this slide in particular, where the arrows go up that say that this project fundable by the city in the grant, that $6.7 million, is that just for the projects including Site A, 40 Oaks, and Milam Park going up would come out of that?
Yes, so just based on this preliminary list of the prioritized projects, and based on those total planning level costs, that's what would be funded.
And that's bond scenario 1, the 20-year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then bond scenario 2, which is the 30-year, would include, go back, James. Just Site B and up. So what about the rest of the projects? What would those come in?
So there would have to be additional funding secured either through grants or potentially future SPOSs.
You see it?
I see it. I
Okay.
don't know where the money coming from is what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and I mean, the only other thing I can say is that this is unfortunately a very typical scenario. This is not unique to Clarkston to have a much larger project list than you can afford. I wish it was another way, but even the city of Decatur, where we recently worked on their Parks Master Plan, and Doraville, where we're currently working as well, have very similar scenarios where their needs are greater than their current resources.
Right.
Let me say something.
Okay, go ahead.
So my challenge with this is a lot of the amenities that will be needed for Milam Park are not in either one of the scenarios as we talk about like park improvement. Because the reason I brought this up because when I look at the latter part of this spreadsheet, the restrooms, some of the courts, all of that falls into this gray area. So the only thing for scenario A would just be some of the path updates and then just Site A development based off of the diagram for scenario 1, right? And so then for scenario B, which will more be connectivity and more tracks. But some of the things that actually would draw folks to utilize in the park, that still would be things that we had to focus on later on for the parks, based off of the spreadsheet and the analysis of your breakdown, the funding, right?
Right. And I mean, one other thing I can just say is one of the challenges is, there are benefits to doing multiple projects concurrently. So even though this list is prioritized, breaking everything down into individual projects, there's potential for further discussions to determine whether if you did multiple projects at Milam together, that there could be cost savings and benefits associated with that. So I understand, that if you don't see all the Milam projects together at the top, that can be a concern. But, this is just the way they initially scored out based on our prioritization criteria. But, we're continuing conversations with Director Duncan to ensure that this list reflects the city's needs. And we're happy to continue adjusting it as you see fit.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Any other comments from the council? Okay.
Just want to ask what next steps are in moving the plan toward consideration of adoption.
Yeah, well, we're just, I think we can collect any feedback on that full report over the next week or two. We can confirm exactly how long you need. And then we're having some final conversations with Director Duncan related to, this list and among other things. And then we can submit that very final version, like I said, I think, in August.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
So with that, if you have any additional feedback or comments, please send that to the city manager for consideration. So I will allow. Thank you very much. Have a seat. Thank you for all of that work. So with that, we'll hear from the public, and I know Michelle, you signed up for that one. Michelle, and I should say public. And just for clarity, Michelle, did you have anything else that you wanted to add for 5A?
Yes.
Because it's already signed, it's just a resolution.
Right.
Okay.
Which I understand, Michelle Surgeon in Clarkston. My comments on 5A, which I don't know if there's any flexibility, but in the request for a proposal under material product specifications, I think the city should look at asking Skyline, when they're evaluating the turf companies, to look at what type of warranties they offer for the turf. I sent the city manager a whole list of questions, and because the only thing we're asking here is an environmental impact and cost estimates for material and labor, and I think we should also include in their evaluation of any turf companies, the cost of any ongoing maintenance of the synthetic fields and what that cost would be to the city and impact Public Works Department. On the park plan, I have a couple of questions. I didn't notice for 40 Oaks, they're talking about community gardens. I thought we already have community gardens there, and then a food forest, which I'm not sure what that is. And also, I didn't see any mention about the status of the Sutton House. And I would recommend keeping 40 Oaks as a nature preserve, and instead of expanding community gardens, maybe have a little nature center, and because that's what the purpose of that park is.
Okay, thank you. And Martha?
Got my little timer. I'm Martha Brown. Appreciate everyone being here. It's good to see everybody. I just want to remind the city that Friendship Forest does have a resolution filed at the state level. We should really get a copy of it and keep it on the premises. I'm here to talk about phase one of both the two options that would be for the Greenway Path.
So if you want to talk about that one, we're almost there.
Yeah.
We're not there.
Oh.
No, we're not quite there yet. And I know you're excited about that.
Well, that's the reason I came.
Okay,
So
all right. We're almost there. Thank you. All right. So in closing, any other public comments? Okay, City Manager.
Yes, ma'am. We'll bring this item back for council consideration at the end of August to be considered for adoption at the first meeting in September, as opposed to adoption next week.
All right, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item 6C, which is a discussion and presentation to select either option A1 or option B for implementation of the Greenway Phase 1 Trail Project. City Manager?
So we have City Engineer Larry Kaiser here to present the trail concept design options A1 and B.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Well, tonight we are here to discuss a project that we have looked at for about a year now. We have looked at a number of options, and you may recall that back in February, I think it was February the 3rd, we brought a number of options to City Council to review. Actually, 4 were presented. Before that, we had a steering committee meeting on the 29th of January to also look at the 4 options. With that, as a result of the City Council meeting, we went back and looked at some variations of the options, which are included there before you. Option A1 and option B, which I'll begin to have some detailed conversations about here in just a few minutes. So these 2 options that you're looking at, one includes a replacement, actually both of them includes a replacement of the box culvert under Montreal Road to ensure that we have a no-rise flood condition. Right now we have flooding. That culvert is undersized. And so in addition to the small number of bridge crossings that we have, pedestrian crossings, I can stop right now. I'm done. Thank you. Option A1, thank you. And so we have a number of crossings. Those crossings provide some restrictions to water flow, but the most significant one is an existing one, which is the box culvert. So you're going to see costs associated with replacing or adding to that box culvert, one of the 2. It may include, and we haven't gotten to the details yet because we're not in final design, we're only in concept design only, but it may include a potential temporary signal at that crossing, red light that allows us to install that box culvert basically all at the same time as opposed to different phases. It includes a temporary culvert that could be replaced. It does not include road closure. That's not something we're going to be looking at, obviously, but there's a lot to go with that. So you have option A1 and you have B. You will also remember that we hired Atkins to do the concept work, which is what you see before you. That concept work includes a GDOT concept report to prepare us for future federal funding. So that concept design includes, the concept report includes all these options, then narrowing it down to option A1 and B. It also includes all of the public comments we received over the last year or so. And it also will include, before, I said sometime next month, we will have the animation. We will have a fly-through of the selected option that you identify, hopefully here tonight. And so that's a 3 to 4 minute animation showing what the trail will look like. And I have details in here of cost estimates for both. Those cost estimates, and we won't go through all the details, but the cost estimates include everything from kiosks to community gardens to lighting to security, everything you can imagine in phase 1. We talked about that. We talked about the fact that we would implement what we could under phase 1 and see what's successful and what's not successful and then apply it for future phases. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. So once council makes a decision tonight about which one we're going to go with, then we will complete the animation and present that at the August work session. It also allows us, once you pick an option and we finish the concept report, we'd like to bring back to you in October the negotiated contract with Atkins. You may recall when we selected Atkins, we identified the full picture. Concept report, final plans, the entire ball of wax. for a complete set of plans. But we released them only in concept work only, based upon the staff's recommendation to council, because we wanted to obtain a fuller picture of what that concept would look like. And I think we have that now after all this work. And so with the selection of an alternative, we can bring back to you a negotiated fee and scope with Atkins to finish the design work, to allow us time to actually prepare for, hopefully, ARC tip solicitation call for projects, either late this year or early next year. I keep looking on the ARC website all the time to see when they're going to have a call for projects. I have not seen anything yet, which doesn't surprise me, but we'll continue to pursue that. So in June, we had a Trails Committee, steering committee meeting. We had Councilman Moore out there, Martha, I guess about 10 or 12 folks from the community. A few that were not on the steering committee also attended, which was nice. And we had Atkins, we had myself, we had 3 members of the South Fork Conservancy. South Fork Conservancy intends on participating to some level on this project. We're not quite sure what that is yet, but I should know as soon as anybody else, because I'm on the board for South Fork Conservancy, so I should have some input into how they fund this, if at all, but I suspect they will. They have indicated some participation here with the project. So we talked about the fly-through animation next month, the concept report being done under concept plans, and then bringing it back to council in September and October. So here's the all-important part that I suspect council was thinking, and that is, how do we fund this gigantic Phase 1 project? So when you look at, actually, let me back up a little bit. There's really 3 things that will be critical to funding Phase 1. One is the county's participation with the dam project. Why I say that is, if they participate at the level that we've asked them to participate, the city manager and the mayor has asked them to participate on, then that will allow us some SPLOST reallocation, number 1. Number 2, we're going to ask for a significant amount of ARC funding whenever that call of projects occurs, about $3 million. And so I think we stand a really good chance of receiving that dollar amount, and the reason for that is because of the public participation, because this project is part of the Greenway grant that we received from Atlanta Regional Commission. So we have a lot going for this project. And plus the cooperation with the City of Tucker, I think we have a lot going to us receiving funding that we've asked for. And then obviously the other important part is, and we have not, city manager and I are still working on this plan, and that is recommendations about SPLOST reallocation of funds. We talked about that at the retreat, so that's another important part of this conversation. So those 3 things coming together, we will be able to fund either option. I will also state that we have sufficient funds, SPLOST funds, allocated for finishing the design plans. We have that. We have about $1 million or so in SPLOST for construction also. But you will see in the table, and I'll go through that right now, there's a funding shortfall. All right, and so that funding shortfall is contingent upon whether we are able to achieve those 3 things I just mentioned. So let's talk about A1 and B. They're both the same for the most part. Some a little more expensive than the other. But you will see that we have SPLOST 2 allocation 2.5. We have the grant award of CDS funding of $2 million. We have design fees, both the current contract and the future contract, of about $1.5 million, which is funded under SPLOST 2. I estimated the amount of right-of-way acquisition, very, very limited. Most of this is in a floodplain, a floodway, city property, basically land that is useless from a development standpoint. So from a cost to the city, it should be quite minimal for the amount that we need for this project. Estimated cost, including contingency, you see either one of them is right around $6 million. Box culvert replacement, $3 million. So the only way that we're going to be able to get funding from GDOT, from ARC for the construction, is if we replace that box culvert that I just mentioned before, because we have to have a no-rise condition. Existing problem, doesn't matter to FEMA, doesn't matter to anybody. It's the fact that it's an existing condition, we're putting more stuff in the floodway, which really doesn't have much of an impact, to be honest with you. Bridges and pedestrian bridges and paved areas have very little effect on what we're trying to achieve here. The effect is existing problem. It's been that way for 50 years. Every time it floods behind Mr. Copeland's property. It floods a little bit behind the mechanical engineering company at the very end. It doesn't impact their buildings, but it does flood their property. And so we're going to have to address that. And the only way to address it is to have a no-rise certificate for that box culvert, which is replacing the box culvert. And so you jump down to the next table, which is what we talked about before. We got the shortfall of $6 million plus or minus. And we got the ARC tip solicitation dollar amount of $3 million that we're going to be pursuing. And then the last column is where we look at the dam funding from DeKalb County, as well as the SPLOST reallocation that we'll be working on here very soon. So if you go to the next couple pages, I guess you can't really pull those up. That's fine. I won't go through all these cost estimates that were prepared. Whenever you have time to read through every one of those little font 8 lettering, it's very small, but those are the cost estimates, and those are the things that we hope to incorporate into phase 1. A lot of detail, a lot of really good stuff. So let's jump to the map that you see behind you, the schematic. So when you look at option A1, you see that yellow. That yellow is basically on the south side of the creek. That's on the downtown's side of the creek. You see a trailhead. We got some pretty pictures of a trailhead in there. Also included in the cost estimate. Trailhead pictures are also included in the cost that we prepared. So that yellow is basically in both what we call the without the base flood elevation. Basically what that yellow is coming off of Montreal Road. You see Mr. Copeland's property right there? That yellow is both in what's defined as the base elevation as well as a regulatory floodplain. So that aqua color, if you want to call it that, I wouldn't say it's aqua. What is that? That's that first legend. That's more like a green, isn't it? Yeah, it's more of a green color. It comes up with aqua on mine. The green is basically the 1 in 100 chance of a flood occurring. 1% chance of flooding. So obviously that trail is in that floodway. All trails like that are in the floodway. And so you design it, you build it, concrete, knowing that over time you're going to have some maintenance to do. It's always going to be the case when you do this, but you have to account for that from a maintenance standpoint, which we will be doing. Then you see that yellow line meandering under A1 jumps into another into the city property. You see a little yellow spur route going into Friendship Forest. That spur connection is exactly what it is. It's concrete going into the dirt path. There's dirt paths on that side of Friendship Forest. We're not paving the dirt paths in the Friendship Forest Wildlife Sanctuary, but we have to have a concrete section for small amount to get into the forest. And so that's what that spur route is. Then you have a pedestrian, you have basically a bridge over the creek. Then you see those 2 long yellow spurs. Those are the ones we've talked about before. Those long spurs are basically access into Clarkston Station as well as Wild Creek Apartments. We wanted that connection, and that connection is all part of the cost of construction. A little challenging to get there, and we'll talk about B as well here shortly, but both details, no matter what you do, no matter what alignment you present here, it's going to be challenging to have those spur connections to those apartment complexes, but you have to have them. What I mean by challenging is elevation, changes in topography. Pretty steep through there in some cases. So we'll be able to do that, but that's why the cost is the cost. So we got those spur connections, and in June when we walked the alignment, I think Councilman Moore will attest to this. We walked both alignments and looked at the pros and cons of each one. And so if you follow that yellow path, you see that route running through the floodplain, the base elevation floodplain, crossing over again as you get to Wildwood Court. See that little black line at the very top? That's the street that goes into the apartments. And then crossing at a point that, that topography is less of a challenge on one end. We looked at going under the creek, under the bridge, I should say, at Wildwood Creek Court roadway, but it's too narrow, and we would have maintenance problems forever if we tried to bring that trail under the bridge. So that's A1. All right, go to the next one, A2. I mean, B, section B. All right, this one. On the surface, it looks good. It has less bridges. It has longer path. The challenge is from Montreal Road, you see the trailhead on the north side of the creek. From the trailhead to about where that yellow line ends and becomes black, right before the spur connection. I wish I had my pointer here. That section there that runs parallel to the creek, there's some really steep topography there. I mean, really steep, and the Councilman Moore will attest to that. We're talking about retaining walls, a whole bunch of things. And so that's the reason why that detail, option B, is more expensive than option A. Option A has more crossings, actually 2 more crossings, but this has 1 crossing, but those retaining walls they're a killer from a cost standpoint. So that's where we are. Our recommendation as a staff is A1. It's in the steering committee, except for, actually, I think the entire steering committee, with one exception, and that exception may be discussed tonight, could go either way. But option A1 provides, I think, the best opportunity to not only access Friendship Forest Wildlife Sanctuary, but also all the apartment complexes. This one here does not access at all Friendship Forest. And so what's going to happen is, and I know for a fact it's going to happen, people are going to use the existing dirt path that exists there now along the sanitary sewer easement. They're not going to walk that path. They're going to walk along where they walk now into the forest anyway. And then you got to cross over 2 very deep gullies, about 7 or 8 feet deep, that people are crossing over now, right outside of that boardwalk, of the landing area that overlooks the creek. And so, it doesn't make much sense, to be honest with you, from a staff standpoint. And so these 2 were based upon the previous 5 or 6 that we worked on. And from our perspective, A1 seems to be the best bet. So what we need tonight or next week is for council to provide direction to us so we can finish a concept report, finish the animation, and move on with negotiation with Atkins to finalize the contract and scope and fee with Atkins so we can be moving forward with final design this year. It won't be done in time for the ARC application. That's okay. We have some really good data here in what we obtain on the final plan development to apply and have a really good application to submit to the Atlanta Regional Commission. That's where I'm at.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks for everybody's hard work on this one. I'll let Councilman Moore, our trail expert, to give his synopsis of what he's seen.
Yeah, up until we took our trip out there, I've never been on that side of the creek. Mm-hmm. I've been here since '97. There's never been any access unless I went up through the apartments on the other side at Clarkston Station. And when we've done cleanups down through there back around 2010, 2014, something like that, we had noticed that there was a huge amount of garbage coming from Clarkston Station. And as we've gone out there now, we still see the garbage. We have lots of kudzu out there. So, and I didn't get the feeling that you had that everybody wanted to have number A. My recommendation would be Plan B for several reasons. Ecologically, for garbage cleanup, and also to give Clarkston Station sort of a community development feature that shows a benefit. I took the manager of Clarkston Station on that same trip all the way up to Wild Creek Circle and back down the other side, and he thought it was also a good thing for his development for Clarkston Station. For one thing, it would clean up all that garbage that's there. It's all overgrown with kudzu as well, so it would help us get the kudzu out of there. And I think that would open up the other side of it for just the general public to feel safe over there and to have access to it. So I prefer Plan B myself, and it's only one bridge. But I had some questions about the alignment with Phase 2 at Wild Creek Circle. These two plans have two different landings when it gets there. And I didn't understand.
No, same landing.
What's that?
So go back to, both of those access the same Phase 2. They both access Wildwood Creek.
Right, but at two different locations. And I didn't
Barely.
understand why
I mean,
they'd be different.
It shouldn't be. It should be the same. That was just most probably just a mistake. The landing is the same.
Yeah,
The
because
footprint's the same.
on Plan 8 it aligns with Phase 2 perfectly, and then the other one
Yeah, it's just awful.
goes down the roadway, then you got to come back up the road to get to it. And the other part of it was that it lines up with Phase 3 at Montreal Road for Plan B. So it's more of a continuous line. It also, I think the general mood and description of the nature preserve is that we don't really want the big access of having a path going through there and people coming on bikes and riding into the nature preserve. So it does help kind of isolate the nature preserve or maintain an intentional access to it, where somebody wouldn't just happen upon it. They would go to Friendship Forest on purpose because it's a nature preserve, not go there for activity. Yeah,
Thank you for your synopsis. Councilman Perkins.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry, for all the work you put into this. I had a clarification question on this page 78 of the PDF agenda, but I think it's, my eyes are not this good. Let's see. Drawing number 7 and drawing number 8. It looks like there's two different alignment options on Montreal Road for that pocket park, kind of the entry point into it. Are those? Can you talk about those real quick? I just want to make sure I understand what those options are, and are they the same cost? Can they work with either?
Yeah, same cost for the trailheads. You're talking about trailhead, right? So option A1 and option B, the dimensions, the footprint of the trailheads are basically the same. You have a little bit more freedom with a trailhead on B. There's more open space behind Clarkston Station Apartments, more green space back there to build a trailhead. The trailhead on A1, a little bit more constricted. It's behind Mr. Copeland's property, and it would be partially in the floodplain. But remember, trailhead is not for parking. It's for people to congregate, to sit and rest, read some kiosk, read some boards and about the trail, and then move on and continue walking. So I think from a cost standpoint, it's going to be basically the same. One is behind Mr. Copeland's property, and one is behind the Clarkston Station Apartments.
So I want to make sure so either one, so we could use, for example, it looks like the drawing in drawing number 7 that has the trailhead on Montreal Creek Circle. So it's aligned with the Phase 3 kind of trail there. You could use that. It looks, because that crosses over the creek right there. I'm assuming that could be used with A1.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Remember, I know we're talking about specifics and concepts, but what you're looking at now in terms of the footprint of a trailhead and exactly where it's going to go, it's going to deviate by several feet either way.
And just to clarify, I'm not worried about the feet out of the way. I'm looking at the side of the creek that it's on, because one aligns with the trail. And
one.
And it involves a.
Yes.
I just want to say, is it because
they both align with the trail?
Because option B has one trailhead. Option A1 has a separate trailhead, right? And so, but then you have these two drawings included.
Yeah,
it looks like
be that
you
way.
could.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So you're going to have a trailhead at A1 at Montreal Road, trailhead, and then that's it. You cross over Montreal Road into the sidewalk on A1. On B, you have a trailhead crossing over Montreal Road, going into a sidewalk. That's all we are talking about with this project, nothing more than that. So don't worry about the pictures. Might be a little confusing because the pictures are part of all the other options that we presented before. So I know it's a little confusing. Just imagine, if you will, a trailhead at the end of A1 touching Montreal Road, a trailhead on B touching Montreal Road. And that's it at this point, nothing more than that.
Oh, yeah. And just to clarify, it's not confusing. I'm just looking at it because to me, what I like about the A1 that y'all proposed is it provides foot access to Friendship Forest without it going through Friendship Forest. So there is a spur that opens that up now so that other people on the Montreal Indian Creek side, don't have to get in a car to drive to a nature preserve. There actually is that access, and we could put signage. I think Councilman Moore's concern of it, not preserving the, the purpose of the park. We could put signage, and there's things we could do, I think, to let people know, hey, you're not riding your bike, your Peloton through here with all your biking buddies. Like, here's a point to stop and be reflective. You can go left.
That one crossing the creek, further down the creek, you have one crossing. So access to Friendship Forest Wildlife Sanctuary is going to be essentially non-existing unless you walk along the sanitary sewer line easement on the south side of the creek, which is what's out there now, right? People walk through the woods along the sanitary sewer line easement, and they walk into Friendship Forest unobstructed. It's just a arbitrary trail in the woods that will always be there, if not getting worse. And so, but the concern about bikers deviating, going through Friendship Forest, that's legitimate. That's legitimate. So what we do is we may design it slightly different to where we don't have a little concrete spur into Friendship Forest. The dirt path goes right up against the trail, So there is no encouragement to go into Friendship Forest unless you're walking in Friendship Forest, if that makes sense. So if you do option B, guess what's going to happen? So either they're going to walk along the sanitary sewer line easement, as they do now, or they're going to walk along the new path on B, cross over the creek, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to hit another trail, dirt path in the woods, and they're going to say, oh man, I want to come back to Friendship Forest. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to backtrack into Friendship Forest, and guess what they're going to do? They won't be able to, because there's deep gullies, two of them, maybe two for sure, maybe three, that are about 10 foot deep and about 8 foot, 10 foot wide. And how are they going to avoid those? They're not. So you're encouraging people to come back into the park on a unsolicited, unapproved trail and trying to cross a ditch to get back into Friendship Forest. And people will do that. I know they'll do it.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Because I'm marinating on something. Dean.
Got one more thing I want to say. This drawing 7, that for Plan B, that bridge is not there. That bridge is all the way down by the creek, by Wild Creek Circle. There's only one bridge.
Yeah, it's the one all the way
Plan
down.
B.
Yeah.
And on Plan A1, that bridge that is closer to this location requires, where it's located, requires moving about 6 huge trees to
That's
put that
correct.
bridge in.
And you know what? That's exactly right. I'm not denying that. We might be able to maneuver the alignment a little bit to avoid some of the trees. So one of the things we did with the surveying is we identified all the hardwood trees, every single one of them, so that when we go into final design, we'll be able to see if we can avoid those hardwoods. But you know what? There's a few hardwoods along the floodplain we're not going to be able to avoid. It's just not possible. And so we'll go in as we would a development firm, a developer, and say, okay, what's the recompense for those trees? The city will then have to recompense, just like we asked the developer to do. Same thing.
I would like to say that if anybody wants to take a trip down the creek, I'm happy to take you out there. Just get in touch with me.
Okay. All right. I think Creek Ranger there. We'll have to have that ranger program as well. Okay. Now I noticed, for example, with how Mason Mills has the way that you can go on the path and then you can veer off and walk. So is that something in terms of how we have option B? Is that something from having signage to be able to tell people to go to Friendship Forest, or do we have those options?
So the B, you don't want people to take, so if you cross, so you start Montreal Road, you walk down the yellow path and cross over that one crossing. See where that orange is across the blue? That's a pedestrian bridge crossing. They jump over and what do you see? A little short, rigged black line, right? That's where the dirt path is on that side of the creek. That dirt path, if you take a right off that trail and head back to Friendship Forest, you got two very steep gullies. I walked them, I've gone down through them. And maybe a third one that's not as deep. You're gonna have to put a bridge across there. 3 bridges, well, 2 bridges for sure.
Okay.
And so that's another cost that's not part of this.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? All right. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. We can continue deliberating. You got option A1, option B. Any other thoughts or consideration for this one? Okay. All right, and as Councilman Moore says, you have the option of taking a trail with him over the weekend if you'd like to. So I'll open this up to the public to allow the public to have their voices to be heard.
Testing. All right. So I just wanted to say that Larry and Atkins were very mindful about this project. I'm Martha Brown. I live at 1179 Clark Street. And I was able to walk the trail along with Dean. If anybody wants to do it again, I'll be happy to go with you as well. I am going to stay neutral on what trail I think is the best because they both have really good benefits. I really do like a lot of Dean's suggestions though, and it really made me think about a lot. I'm just addressing what I observed and what I experienced. So the areas that would be going into Friendship Forest, we did talk about doing more a passive footprint and actually doing something paved. Back there has been really neglected. It was originally supposed to be untouched, but it's also been neglected. There's never been any replanting. There's some erosion. So the path going in there, we insisted on minimalizing any trees being taken out and also possibly some native replanting, which would give some benefit to that area that is now being neglected. One of the reasons I was pushing for pavement up until the bridge is because it would be synergistic and passive footprint that goes with the paths that are already in there. Also, one of the things that we also discussed was both that some people from the South Fork Conservancy were also talking to Larry, and we were talking about the trees. However, that coming in, if it was done passively, you immediately would hit the entrance of that area of Friendship Forest, and you would be like, ooh, I gotta slow down. It's definitely a different shift of energy, which would cause you to be more mindful until you hit the bridge. When you walk on the Clarkston Station side, which like Mark and Dean were pointing out, it is a straight line and you wouldn't have to do all that jiggy-jaggy and stuff like that. The other thing I wanted to mention that cities are now doing is they are really looking at these dirt paths that residents are actually making because that's actually the paths that residents actually take. So that's something that it's happening all over the United States in really progressive cities. And they're really looking at to what people really walk as opposed to what somebody thinks that they should be walking. So that's something that can also be thought more mindful and thoughtful with this Greenway path, is to really look at stuff like that. That's it. I think I covered it all.
All right, thank you.
And I'll walk through with anybody if they want to go as well.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Come up and state your name.
How you doing, Madam Mayor?
How you doing?
William Cunningham, 1013 Pecan Street in Clarkston. And I think both plans look good, but Madam, I left my glasses at home today, so I was barely seeing them, okay? Can we bring that back up again with the gentleman from Atkins? Of the two options? I can see a little better. Yes, yes, yes. Please don't take away my time, Madam Mayor, while he's
Okay, all
bringing
right
it up.
now. We'll give you a pause.
Yes, please.
Can you kind of talk about it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Well,
let's do
I
that.
think we should do, as residents of Clarkston, what's best for the city, obviously, and the residents of the city, and the children too, at the same time, making the path safe. Because we got to be safe. And I didn't know all the gully issues and the big challenges that until the gentleman just brought them up, but I need to walk it with you, sir, and see and get eyes on it. So is that A1? Is that the first option, the gentleman?
That's A1.
And that's the one that he was talking about, and he would prefer? Okay,
And
all
you
right.
want to see B?
Yes, yes, B2, please.
Next.
Yes, okay.
That's B.
And so that black indication, that, I'm sure that's 285, right? Or what is that? The road's here?
At the top,
Yeah, it's top left.
the black road.
Yeah.
Black piece.
Yeah, the black, what is that?
What's that? At the top,
What road
Larry.
is that, sir? Yeah,
So what's that now?
the black,
Yeah, Montreal Road.
Montreal Road.
On the left.
You built? You built? Larry, you worked with me at Georgia Power, remember? Yes, I did. Okay, all right, okay, that's fine. All right, okay, good, okay. Montreal Road. All right, let's go over there.
Okay.
I think they both look good. It's hard to say, but I really need to walk it in all honesty, Madam Mayor, to speak with some authority, you know what I mean? But I like the other option a little better. I know the councilmen don't like it. Can we go back to that one?
Want it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that one right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I may need to borrow your glasses next time, but
Okay, I'll let
let's,
you have it next time.
I'll bring mine, don't worry.
All right.
But that looks good. Are we going to make a decision tonight, or are we going to talk
We're
a
going
little
to talk
bit
about it
more?
next week. We vote on it next week.
You vote on it next
So
week.
you have, again, the option.
I'm going to walk it. I'm going to walk
Okay,
it with him
so,
this
so
weekend.
you might need to put a public service announcement out for that
Yeah.
one. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, that looks good. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. All right, public. Any other public? With that, we'll close it out. It sounds like we need to make this one a general one, not a, this is definitely not, this is not consent agenda, okay?
May I say a few words?
Yes, you may.
So we are going to pursue a EPA grant, or EPD, depends on which one has the most money, for invasive species removal. And so the likelihood of that happening before the trail is under construction is pretty high, I think. So we have not applied yet. I know there's some funding opportunity at the end of the year. So there's a need for a significant amount of invasive species removal. And part of that could also include pickup of trash and debris on that side of the creek that Councilman Moore mentioned. So that's something that I'm trying to formulate and speak to the city manager about.
Excellent.
And try to make that happen with a grant. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that.
No, I'm looking at. So with that, we'll talk offline about that one part. Okay, thank you. So this is, C will be a regular agenda item. We'll move to D, which is discussion and presentation of a draft list of new policies and ordinance derived from the Safe Streets for All SS4A technical analysis and public input. Madam City Manager?
Yes, ma'am. We'll have City Engineer Kaiser.
Wow, we are getting close to the end of this grant. Never been involved with something that involves so much public participation and involvement. This has been pretty hectic, actually. But what you see before you are tables. Because the print was so small, I had to actually print them out 11 by 17. Quite a few policies and recommendations. Those policies and recommendations came from both data collection, public input, technical analysis, and public involvement with the project. And and also site assessments. We've walked the corridor numerous times over the last 12 months. What you have here is a list of policies and recommendations. What's critical about this is that council approved of a Vision Zero resolution last year that talked about a 50% reduction in serious accidents and injuries by 2035, and essentially no accidents, no severe accidents, and no traffic deaths by 2040. Lofty goals, but all very, very, very possible. In doing this, though, and making sure that we pursue that and make sure that happens, we have a whole list of things that are both policy-related and ordinance development related. We're not asking for council to approve any ordinances tonight. We're not asking for council to do anything this year under SS4A. This is future. I'm not going to go through each one of these recommendations. Suffice it to say that the only way this works is if we implement. It's going to take time to implement this. I don't know if we're going to get audited because this is a Biden administration grant, and maybe we won't get audited in the future like we were on the Streetscapes project 3 times. But if we do, we've got to show an action plan. We have to show that we have attempted to mobilize and implement these recommendations. So please, when you have time, just look through them real quick. Whole bunch of things there about education, about taking in consideration recommendations from an infrastructure standpoint and incorporating that into new ordinances, development ordinances and standards that I know Mr. Kedrick is working on with Marcus. A whole slew of things here that need to be considered. Also, what's important to note is that if there is another round of SS4 funding, and I haven't seen this personally, but Kimberly Horn keeps telling me that they're corporate people nationwide, they're hearing that rumor still. For us to have a really good chance of getting implementation funding is if we begin to show that we're implementing these things right here. Not all of them, there's too many of them, but take the first 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, things that we know we can do, and actually put them into place and put them into action. Then we can put that in the grant application and be in really good position to ask for that $8, $10, $12 million of design work that we discussed before, council. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. And Madam City Manager, you reviewed some of these where they have, I see a lot of high in terms of effort priority. Have you had a chance to kind of look at those and then thinking, as we're putting this plan together, what those things might be that you would want to have in that plan?
Yes, ma'am. I have had a chance to look at these. As we looked at these, I wanted to kind of think about the capacity to enforce and implement. A lot of them are like the education pieces and the multilingual pieces. I think not only do we need to incorporate those kinds of things in this plan, but just make that the standard. And I think we should definitely be able to do those pieces. Some of those more technical ones, I'll be talking with Larry and Public Works and Mr. Kendrick about how we implement those, and then bring the recommendations back to council.
Okay.
And there's some things here such as pop-ups. You know,
Right.
we've been doing
Right.
pop-ups forever, right?
Right.
Well, they're recommending a pop-up before you put in a new crosswalk someplace.
Yeah.
Or some infrastructure having public input on site.
Okay. And I did bring up to Presiding Officer Johnson about us having this in terms of SS4. So I think if we're doing this, and this is supposed to be a collaborative piece between us and DeKalb County, we need to make sure these recommendations, we think about it from both perspectives and have their input as well.
Well, they're getting it and they help.
Okay.
Sometimes they participate, sometimes they don't. But
Okay. All right. Councilman Moore.
Yeah, I don't have the ability to print this up in what you have. I'd like to be provided a copy of it so I can refer to it. Thank you very much.
Asking, you shall receive. Okay. Any other comments from council? Okay. Public, do you have any input? All right. This is for information purposes. Is that correct, Madam City Manager?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to item E, which is a discussion of ordinance number 544 to amend Chapter 10 of the City Code related to the return of custody of animals that have been impounded. Madam City Manager.
Yes, ma'am. I'll turn this over to the city attorney, and also our court clerk is here. Court administrator is here to present on this item. Thank you.
Good evening. So we have background on this. In 2021, the city adopted DeKalb County's animal control ordinance. And it's come to our attention that that ordinance contained a bit of an ambiguity with regard to the return of an animal to its owner after the animal was impounded as the remedy for mistreatment or neglect, etc., of the animal. So that ambiguity was that our code section referenced the owner having relinquished custody of the animal, which could be construed to mean that the owner has to voluntarily make that decision. The state of Georgia has laws on this point that are more stringent, thank you, and does not take into account whether or not the owner has or wants to relinquish the animal. So the changes were pretty simple to address that. It's this one section of the code 10-46 that's involved. And basically the changes are just to add section I, stating that a lawful owner may be allowed to reclaim custody of an impounded animal provided the requirements of OCGA 4-11-9.3 and our local requirements are met. And what that state law referenced basically says is that the municipal court's going to have to make a determination that it's appropriate for the animal to be returned and enter into an order that the person is subject to in order for that to occur. And then we also deleted in the next subsection the reference to the owner having relinquished custody of the animal, and we added a couple terms here to make it match with the state law and to make it clear that if they plead nolo, that is effectively the same as being convicted. And we also added dog fighting to the list of crimes that include animal cruelty, neglect, or abandonment of the animal. So that's pretty much it. Y'all may recall that this sort of came to our attention from a particular case, which is obviously in the past, and this won't govern that case, which is over, but it came to the court's attention that this was an issue, and this is the recommendation to address it.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And if you
I'm
good.
in total
Okay.
agreement.
All
I was
right.
just here if there
That's-
were any questions.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Quinn, for what you turn into J, is that something? We just got a new police chief. I don't want to scare him off with all of. You have the police chief. Should it also say like you have somewhere else the police chief or designated representative?
I think you're asking if the chief should make that decision his or herself, or if somebody else from the department can do it.
Yeah, you have like under M or one of the other ones, you have notify the chief or designated representative.
Mm-hmm.
But under J, you have the police chief. So I didn't know if that was also a place where we would have a designated representative.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, my personal approach to that question is that anytime any of our ordinances say the police chief or the city manager, that it includes their designee. In this case, we were only looking at a particular thing, so we didn't even address that.
Okay.
But if that's something that's desirable, we could put it in.
Okay, that's fine. I just asked.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Councilwoman Bell.
Consent.
Consent. Okay. All right. Consent. Nope. Okay. Oh. Okay. All right. Any other comment? Okay. Public. Do we have any comments from the public? Nope. All right. We're good with that. Then consent. It is. Hallelujah. All right. Then we'll move on to F, which is discussion of resolution number 2026-018, authorizing the execution of a lease supplement under the Georgia Municipal Association GMA Direct Leasing Program for the lease purchase of vehicles for public works and administration at the $106,700. Madam City Manager?
So you have been presented with drafts of the lease. It's included in the packet. At adoption of the budget, council approved the appropriation of $65,000 for GMA lease proceeds, and an equivalent offsetting $65,000 in expense purchase for the administration department vehicle, with the current vehicle for the city manager being passed down to the planning department for service provision. At the time of budget adoption, the lease purchase amount was budgeted at $14,000 for the year, with the current lease for both the administration vehicle, office vehicle, and the public works vehicle for the 2026 year is $7,337, which is $6,918 less than budgeted for the fiscal year 26 cycle. The annual payment for years 27 through 29 is $29,351 per year, and the annual payment for 2030, so this is a 4-year lease, is $22,013.25. The total payments over the term of the lease for both vehicles is $117,000, with $106,700 in principal and $10,704 in interest. The presentation of the public works vehicle was presented during the time of rate adoption. And so as we looked at the capital assets for that year, we determined that Public Works was in need of a vehicle because they have been, the assistant director position has been filled. So the current directors, the vehicle for the current director will be passed to the assistant director, and the new vehicle will go to the Public Works director. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Councilman Moore.
So, the Silverado is the Public Works vehicle? Okay.
That's your question?
Yeah. So
Okay,
make sure
all
it's-
right. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Public, do we have any questions? Okay. Is this something for consent? Consent? Okay, all right. We'll move on with the next item, which is G, a discussion of resolution number 2026-019 to enter a master service agreement with Lexipol. Madam City Manager?
Yes, ma'am. I will turn it over to the new Chief of Police, Bullock.
Well, thank
His
you.
first presentation.
All right.
Thank you, City Manager and Madam Mayor, City Council. Apparently, barring public comment, I'm standing between you and adjournment, and probably better things, right? So, the purpose of this is proposing the engagement of Lexpol outsource the process of creating, updating, and managing department policy manuals. Outsourcing these function aids in reducing the legal liability and cost on staff and balances the workload of the department. Current departmental staff can focus on administration, operation of day-to-day, and Lexpol can focus on a specific project function of policy review, amendment, and establishment. Lexpol is a company that is uniquely, has a all-in-one, is the only software that's an all-in-one, basically providing legal updates and as well as updating the policy for state legislative updates and looking at anything that comes along. It implements the policy over a phased project, and it allows us to go into a contract that has a phase. We initially, as a department, we last year applied for certification for the state of Georgia. That's a 3-year, we have 3 years to complete it. Right now, we're a year into it. This agreement here will allow us to complete that in a timely manner, which will be completed by 2028, be state certified, and then move on to national certification with CALIA, which is Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. So, working with the provider, it provides policies that are vetted and continuously updated, shields the department from legal liability in the form of lawsuits and insurance claims. This form of engagement also provides time and specialized staff that are limited by current departmental resources. The funding, of course, is presented. The original year of the first year is at $19,011.40. That comes with an implementation cost in the contract, and would then go to $17,493 per year for the additional years, which would be $53,998 for the total for the 3 years of the contract. This would, of course, like I said, take us into 2028. It would get us state certified before the 2028 deadline to be state certified. It would also ensure that we go into the future with a process that ensures that we continually update our policies to meet the legal challenges and the legislative updates of the state of Georgia. We have, I believe you have the contract itself laid out as it lays out the specific cost for the contract. That would be, this is of course a quote for it, but of course, the implementation cost of 1 year, the first year, the onboarding cost would be $1,598, which then would go away for the remaining years and be at $17,493. I cannot stress to you, as a chief of police and a long-term commander in law enforcement, the need for correct policy, good policy that protects all of us, that protects the men and women out there doing the job, but it also protects this organization and this city from liability. It also ensures that the city, that all the officers are trained in proper use of the policy, that they have the legal updates, and that's part of what Lexipol offers. It puts out training, regular training, as required by the officers. It sends it out to them and also tests them on the policy to ensure they have understanding and compliance with the policy. that is all I have unless you have questions for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is in regards to the position that is currently being, well, I don't think you have anybody in that position right now, but over the years, we've seen this position work on this state cert. So what you're telling us is with this Lexipol, this certification can be obtained by 2028?
Yes, ma'am.
And does it eliminate that position, or it just directs that position to other administrative functions?
It would direct that position to other administrative functions. It would eliminate us having to, what we faced in the past. I've done some research on what we faced in the past. We've actually tried to get state certification numerous times going back to 2012. We did it in 2012, 2015. We were not successful either time. Then in 2025, we brought on another individual that wasn't able to complete that and did not complete the services that we contracted that individual to do. That, therefore...
Contracted? Services. We had somebody contracted for that and somebody that sat in a position for that?
We did not have someone sitting in a position.
Oh, I thought we had a position. Okay, I thought our communications officer was working to get those state certs, because this is an area that I stay on for some reason. So the young man that was doing state cert was not the only person doing state cert?
That is correct. From our understanding, there was a agreement that was gone into by the former chief of police with a contractor to do the work. 50% of the cost was supposed to be paid up front, and 50% after the work was done. We've not been able to determine any substantial work that was done on the project, kind of looking through data that we have on computer systems. There was an opportunity for interim chief Scott to Hamilton to talk with the contractor, and we'll have to, I will want to talk to Chief Bullock about that conversation before we delve into that. But I think that picking up where we are now based on policy review, our current policy review tells us that we need a system that is proven, and that we need a kind of mapped course forward, and Lexipol can provide that for us.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, Madam Mayor, so I've reviewed all of our policies. And what we have right now, it would take substantial work. And based on this, what Lexipol offers us is best practices on a standardized policy that is proven right for law enforcement. And then it offers, a part of this would be the specifics for the state of Georgia to ensure that we were going down the right road for certification here.
Okay.
It also, one of the key aspects of Lexipol is they have an agreement with Power DMS. So it allows us to integrate it into Power DMS, which we use here, which also allows the easy access of the policy and looking it up for our men and women out in the field. So it is for me, it is looking at something, how do I get us on the right track in the shortest amount of time to ensure that we are all protected and that our citizens have transparency and that they are protected as well.
Okay, and I just want to make sure my facial expression has nothing to do with what you just presented, okay? My facial expression has to do with something the city manager's going to follow up and let me know about, and then we're going to have an open discussion about that part. So I want to be clear about that. So I hear what you're saying. It's just, can we make sure, Mr. Quinn, in terms of the review of this document and ensuring, instead of saying it, shouldn't it say just the city of Clarkston, not necessarily the police department?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Councilwoman Bell?
Yes, so the only question I know, I did my research on Lexipol, and I know it's about proficiency, but I also don't know if we need a system and a person. Just thinking about the track record that you mentioned of having somebody that somewhat was trying to get us up to par. And I think the system That's all what I read, and then the contract of it would be the better source. So are we just going to use, if however my colleagues decide to move forward, will we just use the system and not hire someone also into that role as well as to support it, or would we need both?
I think the system does it itself, so we don't need a person. The only thing I could foresee in the future is when we come up on assessment, when we come right up on the certification process, to maybe have a short-term consultant to ensure that we are in compliance before we final submit to the state. That's all.
Okay.
But they have a workbench as a part of this for the state certification. That's a part of this as well. So one of the things that Lexipol does is sends the policies out. I get to review the policy. The assistant chief gets to review the policy before we actually implement every single policy. So we get to look at it from the standpoint of how it fits Clarkston and how it fits the Clarkston Police Department.
Yes, okay, one more, and then the city manager.
You want to say something to that?
With regards to that question, I think, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, we've had some conversation about, previously we have presented a 2-lieutenant scenario. In this scenario, the state certification sergeant now becomes an administrative sergeant as budgeted, and then that particular position will serve as an administrative kind of manager level for our CID unit. So we wouldn't have two functions doing the same thing, but we'll be filling a gap.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I know it integrates well with the system that we currently use, but is there an additional training that's necessary, or would that administrative function role support with the training to make sure that...
So Lexipol actually has its own training function. So it puts out, as it implements the policy, it has a training function that it's virtual. And then we can follow that up with roll call training to ensure, and they also have a testing part of that to ensure they have learning and understanding.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the council? Councilman Perkins?
Thank you. So in terms of the training that they're receiving, from my understanding from your presentation, this is going to be specifically around kind of best practices and the law, right?
That's correct.
It's not going to involve like, hey, here's different approaches to community policing or things like that. So would that still be a need or like something that y'all would do at roll call training? Or
well, we would always, we always, every year we have mandatory training on community, and we have mandatory training on reduction. We have mandatory training on mental health. We have mandatory training from the state. But we also, we do training ongoing on a lot of different avenues, right? We do mandatory training throughout with firearms, with use of force, right, with defensive tactics, stuff like that. So, and also community engagement. So community engagement is huge for our overall training aspect. But to your point, the policy, right, so the policy will implement community engagement policy, right? So that we have policy on how we do it, right? And how we engage with our community, right? And that how often, that kind of thing will be in the policy as best practices.
Okay, great. And so really what I'm getting at is this isn't the only thing. This is sort of making sure that we have a good foundation. It's incorporating some additional things. It's making sure that foundation is there for state certification, but it's not the only thing you guys are going to be doing. So
oh, no, absolutely not. No, this is, the training involved in this is strictly training on the policy itself, right? To ensure that they understand and have compliance with the policy itself, right?
Yeah, thank you. Sure.
Any other comments from council? Okay, any other comments? All right, do we have any comments from the public? All right, Chief, you can step to the side. Thank you for your first presentation. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor, as you call the public up, can I talk a little bit about how we will fund
You
this?
can have a seat right there. Just sit right there. Let's go. We got you.
I think it's in the, I know we put it in the agenda summary, but we plan to use current, general fund adjustments to fund We're not asking for additional monies.
Okay, great to hear. Thank you for that piece. Now, the public.
Yes, Madam Mayor. One other question, just doing
And
some
state your
brief.
name.
Oh, again, I got to get used to
Every
this. I'm
day,
sorry.
Count.
William Cunningham, 1013 Pecan Street, beautiful city of Clarkston, Georgia. One other concern I had, just doing some short research on Lexipol that we may not know, but in 2017, the ACLU in California sent a letter to them because their program was a little skewed, and I'm just reading here some of its policies. The ACLU stated that it led to racial profiling and harassment of immigrants. So we got to be sure if we go with such a program, Clarkston is all this. Immigrants, racial profiling, and like the chief said, it can't be the sole answer for this whole problem. It has to be a human element to it. We know AI is coming, yeah, whatever, but we need somebody behind it. And I just wanted to see if the chief had an answer for that, how it would complement, like Councilman Perkins says, that a human eye, that human element, because we're immigrants, we're racial, we're diverse, and if we get something that doesn't recognize that or that hadn't been cleared, we got a problem.
Thank you for pointing that out.
And the city manager touched on that already.
And the city manager touched on it, and if the chief wants to, and his additional research ensuring that the product will make sure that it thinks about that, and you are making that very clear to them, the composition of our community.
Yes, ma'am. I would say that, I would say this, I would say 2017 was quite a while back. In 2017, obviously, Lexipol would have improved their policies and policies from 2017, looking at what ACLU brought up and stuff like that. That's part of their process, is to review and get best practices. So I would say that should be the case with Lexipol. But for us in Clarkston, as a Clarkston Police Department, my philosophy on engagement with our community and protecting our community and being transparent with our community is at the forefront of what I want to do. Hence why I want a policy that is something that can be viewed. I want it, part of this whole concept is to be able to take the policy outward facing, right? So any citizen in the city of Clarkston, get on our website so you can just click on there and read any policy that's in there. That's currently not something that we have, right? So we want transparency. I want transparency, right? So one of the great things is don't hide anything. If you have a concern about how we do business, you can go on the website, and once we have this implemented, be able to go on the website and look at whatever you want to.
So, and I think to that point, for our community's safety, that you have the conversation with Lexipol.
Absolutely.
To make sure
Yes.
that, based on the information, that they have a clear understanding and that the software and the implementation is aligned with our community values.
Yes, ma'am. And as I stated earlier, all of them they will come to me to be reviewed before we implement them here, to make them part of our policy.
Okay, Councilwoman Bell.
The only other thing I'll say, and if this gives anybody any resolve, is that Lexipol was actually bought out in 2017 and bought out by another company. So I would like to see, Chief, if you're able to find out what changed and their approaches, because I think that could potentially provide some resolve for community.
All right, City Manager.
Yeah, just quickly, just to piggyback off of what Chief Bullock said, although this system will create the policies, it will still go through the standard review process by the chief of police, by human resources, and we are implementing an ED&I component as a part of programmatic changes throughout our organization. So not just for police, but in every aspect of what we do, from applications to events, taking an opportunity to look at everything that we do and make sure that we are being equitable, and we understand that those policies have to fit within the diverse dynamics of our community.
Okay. All right, with that, we have public comment. Any additional public comment? That's why we love having y'all come up and speak. Thank you very much. With that, this won't be a consent unless y'all wanted consent, but I think we need some.
We'll come back. We'll come
Okay.
back.
Yes, thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on. And thank you, Chief. Thank you. You're good. You're good.
Sorry,
All right.
can I say quick? Do we need more information on the specific contract or just some of the background that we discussed? Would that change?
I'll let the city manager.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think from a legal perspective, we've had Mr. Quinn to look at the terms within the contract. I think we're fine in that regard, but looking at, that change in ownership and some of their principles and guidelines and some of the things that the gentleman presented, kind of looking back at that to see if there has been any documented change of things that have happened with Lexapol.
Gotcha. Okay. Just
All
want
right.
to make sure I was clear on that.
Yep, thank you. With that, we'll move on to H, which is the discussion, I don't have my glasses on. Resolution number 2026-020, requesting Clarkston roadways to be approved for use of speed detection devices. Madam City Manager.
Yes, ma'am. We have Chief Bullock up again. He's on a roll tonight.
All right.
Turn the road now. Truly, I am standing between you and adjournment now. Okay, so the local speed detection is allowed when a permit is issued by the state of Georgia, subject to approval of the Georgia Department of Transportation, or GDOT, and the Georgia Public Safety, Department of Public Safety, DPS, the city's application for speed detection. We actually submitted the application for speed detection. It must be accompanied with a copy of the resolution, the governing body seeking a permit showing that the governing body approves of and desires the use of speed detection devices for its law enforcement officers. So we did actually submit that a while back, and it is now up for renewal. One of the changes that we must make for the roadways of Clarkston, once we reviewed it, the state reviewed our last application. One of the things that was brought up to us is that Norman Road is, once it goes from DeKalb County into the city of Clarkston, it goes to 15 miles an hour. 15 miles an hour you cannot use detection devices on 15 miles an hour. So because of that, we had to take Norman Road off, and that is the only change. We're taking Norman Road off. Everything else remains the same. All the street signs and markings appropriate for this have been placed by Public Works and are currently in good condition. So Norman Road is the only change that we have here, and if we get approval here, we will submit that to get approval for use of detection devices on all of our roads except for Norman Road. But Norman Road, of course, has speed mitigation devices there to slow down the traffic there on Norman. And that's it, unless you have questions for me.
So,
Yes, Mayor.
thank you, Madam Mayor. So you're telling me that our streets are now certified, right?
As of right now, they're up for renewal.
They're up for renewal. So but the process that you're going through now, is that going to certify what we currently have, or send us back to what was last certified?
It will send us to what we currently have.
That's fine. Good deal. Now, can we check the speed from the previous registration on Norman Road? Because our previous city manager just went out there with some speed signs.
So so what we did was we actually reviewed that, so if we could change it. However, due to the speed mitigation devices that are in place, engineering-wise, 15 is the limit for those devices. Therefore, we can't actually change it back to 25, and where we could actually do detection.
If 15
Madam
is
Mayor,
not
we-
helping,
So-
25 is definitely not.
Okay, so I'm gonna let City Manager and then Councilman Moore.
Okay. We did have Public Works and PD to go out together to make sure that the current signs are in line. But there was some discrepancy with the speed that is showing on GPS mapping. But all of that got squared away, right, Mr. Seaton? Director Seaton. And so now the signs adequately reflect the speed limit on each road.
Good deal.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Councilman Moore?
Yeah, I know we had a uniform, 30 miles per hour for a while from one of our city managers changing the signs. And I kind of liked it, but looking at this situation here, for instance, East Ponce de Leon from, I don't know what 407 means, but I-285 overpass to Pecan Street, that's 40 miles an hour. That's where we have most of our accidents, is right there at Mel Avenue. Why do we have 40 miles an hour there?
It's all 20, I believe it's 25.
That's,
Oh, it's 40 at the top, yes. Okay, so you're talking about north of Brockett?
No,
Trail.
no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. Where it says speed limit 40 on the right-hand side.
right there.
Yeah, East Ponce de Leon, one of the things about East Ponce de Leon is it has constant changes in speed. So it is one of the areas, if you'll see that, it's about 0.62 of a mile. So 40 miles an hour for 0.62 of a mile. Back at the top, you'll see it's only 0.38 for 40 miles.
Well,
So-
the top is 0.38, 5 down is 0.26, and then another 4 down is 0.62 that you're talking about, again, on Ponce de Leon, 120 feet east of Cobble Mill Lane to 0.05 miles east of Country Address. Can we put that back down to 30 or 35? I mean, that's kind of a, I mean, why are we changing the speed limit on one road in so many areas?
Well, this is, what they're doing is they're going by a renewal. They're
Right.
like looking at a renewal application.
Well, I've never seen this
In order
before.
to certify, you have to renew what you currently have
So,
and then make
no,
the
no.
modification.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So-
That's correct.
So we renew what we have, then we can bring the
That's correct.
speed limits back
Right.
down to
That's correct.
a reasonable
If
speed.
by the city council, you could change the
Correct.
speed limit.
Well, we need to look into that. We need to do that.
Can we do that?
Okay.
So thank you, and I'll
Can we
let the
have-
city attorney,
Larry?
and then the engineer, city
Yeah,
attorney.
I was just going to say, and this is probably or definitely more Larry's department than mine, but there's a front end review on these things with GDOT, and especially if something's like a primary road like that, I forget what they call it, like Ponce de Leon is. I'm not sure that we have like total carte blanche to set that. So you gotta get GDOT to approve this, then y'all approve it, then on the back end, public safety at the state level approves it. So I don't know if, I just wanted to throw out there that GDOT may be the answer to some questions that are, why is this such and such?
Well, let me just
And
make
so-
one more comment, that this reminds me of a speed trap where you're going along at 40 miles an hour, suddenly it changes to 35, and it reminds me of the old towns along the
Yes, sir.
The
But
back
I
roads.
think what Larry might be able to tell you is that it does go to traffic, right, to intersections, to how it's improved, right? May it be a complex or something like that, how traffic flows into it, or it has to slow it.
All right, Mr. Kaiser.
Okay. So, Chief Hudson was here. We provided the chief with a very detailed outline of what the speed limits should have been, not what they are now, and for corrective action. And I guess that never came to fruition. I didn't follow up on it. But the speed on the road is based upon a number of criteria. These are all local roads. GDOT has to sign off on it, right, as for the radar permit. At the end of the day, the speed on any section of roadway is based upon geometrics, how narrow the road is, the land use conditions on both sides of the road, whether you're going into a town center, a more populated area. So you look at all of that, and then you come up with a speed limit that is appropriate for that roadway. Councilman Moore's right. You don't want to have a 40, 30, 40, 30. You want to be consistent. So that's part of that speed study and an engineering analysis, which is what we had before, back 6, 7, 8 years ago, in a spreadsheet that showed what those speed limits should be, including Norman Road. Norman Road was designed as a 15 mile per hour road, pure and simple. Anything more than that, it may be different now, but when we go back and correct the speed limits, it needs to be 15 miles an hour, because those roundabouts, or I should say our easeabouts that we designed, are purposely designed for 15 miles an hour. End of story. And so if you do anything more than that, you're liable. And so there's a lot that goes into something like this, particularly in a small city, where speed limits on Collector Road, East Ponce and Church. You have to look at the speed limits. And there may be sections of East Ponce that maybe should be 35 and then transition to 30 as you come into the downtown core, and then increase it to 35 as you move outside that downtown core. We had that all laid out in a spreadsheet, so I'll give that to the chief and let him look at it going forward.
Okay.
Does that make
Councilwoman
sense?
Bell? I mean, it does, but to Dean's point, it's kind of difficult to know when it stops going from 30 to 35 to 40. I mean, I can see based on the chart how it, as you get close to the highway, it increases, but in city, to your point, it decreases.
And GDOT's going to ask that question. They're going to say, how was that speed limit identified? How was it selected? Now, they may not, because they got so many of these they have to do, but we want to be sure that we give them the proper engineering approach for a speed limit on a city roadway.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell.
Yeah, so I think the recommendation here is to get the study from Larry. And we did an extensive study on the traffic study, and that was contentious. And I hate to say this, but none of this is germane to the item that we have before us. Nothing that we discussed has anything to do with the item before.
Oh, okay.
I claim first time I've seen this.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We don't need to have that. So, any public comment?
I just want to say
State your
that,
name.
I'm Martha. I live at 1179 Clark Street. I just want to say I like the idea of addressing this. And also, I live in a pocket neighborhood like a lot of people do. And when I go for a walk, they're like 15, 25. They all have inconsistent speeds as well. And then we live in a small neighborhood where it's 25 miles an hour. It's pretty fast. So are we going to be addressing some of the little pocket areas as well?
So, thank you for that comment. That's a follow-up with our staff on that one. So, okay, thank you. So, any other comments from the council? So, Madam City Manager, is this more for information purposes, or is there any action on our part?
I mean, as a research and our ability to use the speed detection devices, we need resolution of council to do that. If we want to say, okay, we will allow for the research, and we also want an additional traffic study, or to look at previous traffic study to see if there is anything we want to change, and then we bring that new list back to council with the traffic study, and then we reapply at some point. But I know that we get a lot of calls about we need to be able to monitor speed, and that's why we have these detection devices to do that under the current parameters that we have, or limits that we have on our streets. So I wouldn't want to impede the ability to monitor.
Yes. Let me say that. So
Did Madam Mayor give you the opportunity to? No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
From the public comment.
Yes.
So in doing the ease abouts that Larry's talking about, if you take roads down to 15 miles an hour or so, we cannot use speed detection devices on them. So someone brought up the point, hey, the 15 it doesn't work as well, right? So it doesn't limit them to 15 miles an hour, even though you put the devices, the speed mitigation devices. You limit us from being able to actually use speed detection devices to go out and do enforcement, right? And so when you limit us from being able to do enforcement, when we get the complaint, hey, they're going too fast on whatever road, if it's 15 miles an hour, then we cannot do a whole lot about it, right? So what we ultimately 25 right, which is most residential streets where it's posted or not, it's 25 miles an hour. But 25 is something we can do something about, right? So in the residential neighborhoods where it's 25 miles an hour, we can complain about speeding or whatever might be the case, whether it be speeding or it be exhibition of speed, drag racing, the new stuff with the street racing and stuff like that. We need the ability to go out and do enforcement. So, and also with this, when we get this recertified, I've already talked to the State Patrol. So on days that their days when they do enforcement on Wednesdays, it's their major enforcement day when they come out. They'll be able to partner with us along with other local jurisdictions, so we can partner and slow down people across the spectrum of the two major roads that go through Clarkston, which is East Ponce and Church. Right. So those are the main things that we want to do. We want to make the city safe. We want to make our driving safe as well. So there's the goal behind the whole thing. And so getting this certified gives us that ability.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead in terms from get it certified, review what the engineer has, and then if you need to go back to that.
All we're doing is approving these devices.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Well, yes.
Consent.
A comment?
Yes.
I agree. That's when I saw this. I welcome this. I think it's great. My get out of jail free card was always, if I ever did get a speeding ticket, I would say, "Is this area certified for that?" And then I win.
Teach them how to do it.
So
Your life,
thank you.
your
So
life
with
of crime
that,
is over.
You
Can
wanted
I-
Councilman Perkins?
Yeah, I'd like to throw this on consent.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I second that.
Okay, second consent?
I'll triple it.
You'll triple it? Okay, you got a consent. There you go.
All right.
With that, we'll end with an adjournment. Yes.
I moved that we adjourn.
A second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Meeting is adjourned.
I did that. I got all that stuff started. But it's hard to use.